People often notice 11:11 during moments when their attention is already slightly loosened from habit. They're not rushing, they're not fully absorbed in distraction. They glance at a clock, a phone, a dashboard, and the numbers register with unusual clarity. It can feel personal, as if something leaned forward and briefly touched awareness. That sensation is what gives the moment its weight, not the numbers themselves. For many people, 11:11 shows up during periods of internal shift. Not dramatic upheaval, but quieter reorganization. A relationship no longer sits the same way in the body. An old role feels thinner than it once did. A familiar rhythm begins to feel slightly misaligned. Attention stops locking automatically onto the usual anchors and begins to hover. In that hovering state, the mind searches for coherence. It looks for something that confirms the sense that what is changing matters. The number becomes a mirror, because attention is already searching for reflection. Human perception is not passive. It is selective, shaped by relevance and internal state. When something acquires meaning, it moves forward in awareness. The rest recedes. This is not an error in the system. It is how orientation works. When someone begins to notice 11:11, they are not seeing it more often because it suddenly appeared. They are seeing it because attention has reorganized around an unresolved internal question. Many people interpret this as awakening. Others interpret it as synchronicity. Some experience it as guidance. These interpretations are attempts to give shape to a felt experience that has not yet stabilized. What matters more than the label is the condition that allows the experience to register at all. Attention has slowed just enough to notice itself. When life runs purely on momentum, perception narrows. The mind tracks tasks, obligations, and expectations. Time becomes a tool instead of a texture. In that state, numbers remain functional. A clock is just a clock. But when momentum weakens, when the nervous system pauses instead of pushing forward, perception widens. Patterns stand out. Familiar things gain edges. The ordinary becomes noticeable again. This is why 11:11 often appears during uncertainty rather than clarity. It shows up when the old structure no longer feels convincing, but the new one has not yet formed. The mind is between reference points. In that space, anything that appears ordered can briefly stand in for stability. The number itself is simple: 2 ones mirrored. Symmetry, alignment, clean edges. The mind reads this as coherence, not because the number carries inherent power, but because it contrasts with an internal sense of disorder. When the inner world feels fragmented, symmetry feels soothing. The number becomes a temporary resting place for attention. Some people experience this as reassurance. Others feel watched. Some feel called. These reactions say more about the state of the nervous system than about the number. When the system is calm, the moment feels neutral or quietly interesting. When the system is charged, the moment feels loaded. Meaning intensifies when regulation loosens. This is where interpretation often moves outward. The mind prefers external confirmation over internal contact. It can feel easier to believe something is happening to you than to stay present with what is happening inside you. Symbols become attractive when self-trust is still forming. Synchronicities can feel like proof that you are on the right path. They can also feel like warnings, messages, or signals. But notice what happens when meaning is assigned externally. Attention leaves the body. It leaves the present. It begins to wait. The number becomes something to look for, rather than something that reveals how you are already relating to experience. A more grounded approach is quieter. Instead of asking what the number means, attention turns inward. What was happening just before you noticed it? What emotional tone was present? What question was active beneath thought? What sensation was moving through the body? Often, the answer is simple. A pause, a moment of doubt, a flicker of self-awareness, a recognition that you were operating on autopilot and briefly stepped out of it. The number did not create the pause. The pause made the number visible. Awareness does not arrive through spectacle. It arrives through interruption, a small break in pattern, a disruption in habit. Something catches attention because attention is finally available. When people say they keep seeing 1111 everywhere, they are often describing sensitivity rather than frequency. Perception has become more responsive. The field of experience feels slightly more alive. This can feel intriguing at first. It can also feel destabilizing. Old certainties loosen before new ones are ready. This transitional phase can be uncomfortable. The mind wants clarity and direction. Symbols seem to offer both without requiring direct engagement. They appear to provide answers without demanding responsibility. Inner authority does not develop through signs. It develops through contact, through staying present with uncertainty without outsourcing meaning, through learning to sense orientation rather than chasing reassurance. If you treat 1111 as a message, you remain a receiver. If you treat it as a reminder, you return to agency. A reminder to notice where attention is. A reminder to check the body. A reminder to sense whether you are aligned with your own experience or moving against it. Alignment is not mystical, it is physiological. When thought, sensation, and action point in the same direction, the system settles. When they diverge, tension increases. Moments that feel meaningful often coincide with brief alignment. The nervous system registers this as relief. This is why some people feel calm when they notice repeating numbers, not because the universe has spoken, but because awareness briefly synchronized. The mind slowed. The body softened. Attention returned home. Awakening, in its grounded form, is not about discovering hidden codes in reality. It is about noticing how reality interacts with your internal state. The world feels reflective when awareness becomes honest. Numbers are neutral. Attention is not. What you notice reveals how you are organized. What stands out shows where coherence is being sought. Over time, reliance on symbols either matures or hardens. In its mature form, symbolism points back inward. It loses authority and becomes informational. In its hardened form, symbolism replaces self-trust and becomes something to follow rather than something to learn from. Eventually, the number appears and nothing dramatic happens. No surge, no charge, just recognition. That is not loss. That is integration. The system has learned to carry itself. Inner consciousness does not open all at once. It stabilizes gradually. It moves from fascination to familiarity, from interpretation to direct sensing, from external markers to internal reference. For many of you listening, this process is already underway. The pause has begun. Attention has shifted. Something familiar no longer fits the way it used to. What matters now is not how you explain it, but how you meet it. Some people try to seal the cracks and return to old patterns. Others stay present with the fracture and discover that it is not a failure, but an opening. That choice is quiet, but it is decisive. If you have noticed moments like this in your own life, moments where patterns repeat, where timing feels precise, where attention sharpens in unexpected ways, you are not alone in that experience. Many people move through these phases privately, unsure whether to speak about them or dismiss them. If you feel comfortable, you're invited to share what you've noticed in the comments. Not as proof, not as belief, but as lived experience. Repeating numbers, sudden clarity, unusual pauses where awareness felt closer than usual. Sometimes, hearing another person name it helps restore perspective. If this reflection helped you orient more clearly to what you're experiencing, consider subscribing so you can continue exploring these themes over time. There's no urgency and no pressure, just a shared space for grounded attention and honest observation. Thank you for being here. Thank you for staying present long enough to notice what's shifting. And thank you for being willing to meet your own experience directly, without turning away from it.